Hello Golden State Warriors fans. We are here once again to bring you the latest news related to our team, and I would like to emphasize how committed we are to improving our performance to achieve great results. Before we dive into this intriguing news, I kindly request you to show your support by clicking the like button, and if you are not yet subscribed to our channel, I invite you all to join us on an exciting journey. Remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything.
This game was tied at 84 after 3 quarters, and then Golden State hit the gas. They ripped off a 15-0 run and never looked back. The Warriors beat the Kings 137-103 at Chase Center on Friday. They outscored Sacramento by 30 in the second half, and they made 12 more three-pointers than the Kings. The bench wasn't just good, it dominated 66-38. Stephen Curry led the way with 27 points, the most in the game. He hit 6 threes, also the most in the game, and he led everyone with 10 assists. Curry did all of that while sitting the final 5 minutes and 40 seconds of the fourth quarter. That 10-assist mark was his first double-digit assist game of the season, and he had only 2 turnovers while doing it. You might be thinking, how does a tie game turn into a 34-point win? It starts with runs and it ends with depth. D'Anthony Melton stayed hot again. After scoring 22 against the Bucks on Wednesday, he dropped 19 points in 19 minutes here. He led all reserves in scoring, and over the last 2 games, Melton has made 8 threes, second only to Curry in that stretch. Then Brandon Podziemski saved his best for the biggest moments. He scored 12 of his 14 points in the fourth quarter. He hit a buzzer beater while positioned behind the basket, starting from the baseline and nearly drifting out toward the sideline. Then he slid to the rim for an and-one finish, and he ended the night with a 2-handed dunk after a short mid-range attempt that stayed near the rim. Draymond Green also had a rare offensive line for this season. For the first time this season, he had at least 10 points, at least 8 assists, and at least 3 made threes. Green finished with 11 points, 8 assists, and 3 threes. He also leads the Warriors in assists per game this season, and he's matching his career best with 1.4 made threes per game. Now here's what made this win feel bigger than one night. The Warriors scored 40 points in the fourth quarter, their highest final quarter total of the season. It was their 7th 40-point quarter this year, and they're 6-1 in those games. And the ball movement hit a new high. Golden State recorded a season-best 39 assists. Their previous high was 36. When they get to 30 assists, they win. They're 12-2 this season when they record 30 or more assists, including 9-1 at home. And they've had 30-plus assists in 3 of their last 4 games. Here's the simplest contrast from this night. The first 3 quarters were a coin flip. The fourth quarter was a landslide, tied at 84 after 3, then a 15-0 blast, and suddenly Curry is resting the last 5:40 because the game is handled. Let's hit the numbers fast. Warriors 137, Kings 103. Bench points were 66-38. The Warriors had 39 assists and only 11 turnovers, compared to 13 for Sacramento. They went a perfect 14 for 14 at the free throw line. They scored 60 points in the paint, their second highest mark of the season. Curry finished with 27 points, 6 threes, and 10 assists. Melton had 19 in 19 minutes. Podziemski had 14, with 12 in the fourth. Green had 11 points, 8 assists, and 3 threes. And here's a weird one. Curry and Moses Moody had 0 rebounds. That's the first time a Warriors starting backcourt had 0 rebounds since March 26, 2007. Now zoom out to what this means at home. The Warriors have won 6 of their last 7 home games. They're 13-5 at Chase Center this season, and they've won 8 of their last 11 overall. This was the second game of their current 8-game homestand. That ties the longest homestand in franchise history. This stretch runs from January 7, 2026 to January 20, 2026. The Warriors also tied the season series with the Kings at 1-1, and they play again on April 7 at Chase Center. Golden State has won 19 of its last 25 home games against Sacramento. So let me ask you, what matters more to you in a win like this? Curry's control with 10 assists, or the bench dropping 66? Because that's the story of this blowout. A tie game turned into a 15-0 run. The ball movement hit 39 assists. The bench separated the game, and the Warriors dropped 137 points on the way to their biggest win margin of the season. Next up, Golden State stays home. They face the revamped Atlanta Hawks on Sunday. And that Hawks game matters because this homestand is the stage. Golden State is already 13-5 at Chase Center, and they've won 6 of their last 7 at home. So the question isn't just can they win again, it's whether they can keep stacking the same habits that created this blowout. Because the blueprint from Friday was loud, more threes than the opponent. A bench that doesn't just survive, it swings the game. And ball movement that turns good shots into great shots. That 39 assist mark wasn't a cute number. It was the clearest sign the offense was connected. And when this team is connected, the margin for error gets bigger fast. You saw it in the second half. A tie game became a 15-0 avalanche. And once that happened, Curry didn't even need to finish the night. That's what it looks like when the group carries the load together. The bench piece is just as important. 66 points from the reserves is not a small boost. It's a whole second engine. And when the bench wins by 28, it changes everything about how the game feels. It lets you play with pace. It lets you survive stretches without leaning on the starters for every answer. It also raises the standard moving forward. Because once you show you can get that kind of production, fans expect it again. Melton's stretch is one of the clearest signals. He followed a season-high 22 against Milwaukee with 19 in 19 minutes here. And 8 made threes in 2 games puts real pressure on defenses. If he's giving you that punch, it reshapes the rotation without forcing anything. Podziemski's fourth quarter is another example of timing. He didn't just score. He scored when the game was being decided. 12 of his 14 in the fourth is the type of burst that turns a lead into a runway. And Draymond's line matters for spacing and flow. 11 points, 8 assists, and 3 threes in one night changes how defenses can guard the floor. If he's a real perimeter threat, help defense has to make harder choices. Then there's the clean basketball. 11 turnovers as a team. And the Warriors are 16-4 when they commit the same number of turnovers or fewer than the opponent. That's the quiet stat that keeps you in control. It's also a trend lately. They've had 11 turnovers or fewer in 3 straight games. Free throws were perfect too. 14 for 14 is not flashy, but it removes wasted points. In games where momentum swings, that matters. And the scoring levels are becoming a pattern, not a one-off. They're 5-1 when they score over 130. They've also scored at least 120 in 8 of their last 10, averaging 120.1 points in that stretch. So this isn't just about one big night against Sacramento. It's about a stretch where the offense is producing consistently, and the fourth quarter punch keeps showing up. 40 points in the final period was their best fourth quarter of the season, and it was their 7th 40-point quarter overall, with a 6-1 record in those games. That's a real identity marker. When the Warriors can close with that kind of scoring, they don't just win, they separate. Now it becomes about repeating the formula on Sunday. Keep the threes falling, keep the ball moving, keep the bench aggressive, and keep the turnovers under control. Because if those pieces stay in place, this homestand can turn into more than just a nice week. It can turn into a stretch where Golden State builds real momentum, right at home. The Warriors' title picture is starting to come into focus after 2 loud wins. Golden State has won its last 2 games with convincing victories over the Milwaukee Bucks and the Sacramento Kings. For most teams, a 2-game streak is just a small step after a rough stretch. But for the Warriors, who are entering a stretch that could shape the rest of their season leading into the trade deadline, these wins feel bigger than just 2. And the timing matters. Including these last 2 games, Golden State now has the luxury of playing 8 straight at home, after opening the season with a difficult travel-heavy schedule. At 21-18, a strong run could put them in position to climb into the top 6, if they make the right move at the deadline. More than anything, these 2 wins showed something important. The team finally looked like the version the organization envisioned in the preseason, and that's where the real hope comes from. Not long before Christmas, things looked pretty bleak in Golden State. Nearly all of their top players had missed games due to injuries, and the team's major off-season additions, Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton, weren't making much of an impact. The Warriors were ranked 21st in the league on offense, and it was fair to wonder if the pieces they had would be enough to push into real title contention. But over the last 2 games, they've scored 257 total points. No, it didn't come against elite defenses. Still, it's a clear sign of progress, and it creates a real opening for optimism. Stephen Curry led the team in scoring in both games, just like you'd expect. And Jimmy Butler chipped in 21 points and 15 points. That's the baseline Golden State needs from those 2 every night. The real difference came from the support around them. Quinton Post put up 22 total points across the two games and hit 4 of his 11 three-point attempts. Melton scored 41 total points. Draymond Green added 25. And against Sacramento, Golden State had 7 players finish in double figures. That balance is the Warriors' identity. Everything revolves around Curry's gravity and the way he bends a defense. Sometimes that style backfires when the supporting cast isn't confident or shots aren't falling. But when the role players are engaged and converting, the Warriors can suddenly look like a machine, smooth, connected, and hard to stop. Now the real test is still ahead. Even during this homestand, tougher challenges are coming, and the report suggests they'll probably still need to add a legitimate second option at the trade deadline. But for now, it's encouraging to see signs that the pieces are starting to click. Because if this is the offense they can build on, the path forward doesn't just look possible, it starts to look real, and that's the tension heading into this 8-game homestand. Because home games can stabilize a season, but they can also expose what's still missing. Right now, the Warriors are showing what they look like when the supporting cast actually shows up. It takes pressure off Curry. It makes Butler's scoring feel like a steady foundation instead of a rescue mission. And it turns the offense from survive this possession into something that can stack stops and buckets in a row. The 7 double-digit scores against Sacramento is the clearest example of that balance. It's not one guy saving the night. It's multiple players keeping the floor spaced, punishing help, and making the game easier for the stars. That matters because this team's style is built around Curry's gravity. When role players hesitate, defenses can load up and live with the results. But when those same players shoot with confidence, the Warriors force opponents into real choices. And that's when they look connected again. The timing also matters because the trade deadline isn't just a date on the calendar. It's the next checkpoint for what Golden State believes this group can be. At 21-18, the report suggests a winning streak could push them toward the top 6. So every home game becomes a chance to do 2 things at once. Win now, and gather proof about what the roster still needs. Because even with this scoring surge, the article's point is clear. Golden State probably still needs a legitimate second option at the deadline. These 2 wins don't erase that. They just make the conversation sharper. If the offense is finally trending up, the front office has to decide whether this is a temporary hot stretch or the beginning of a formula they can trust. And that's where the repercussions get real for the rotation. If the supporting cast keeps producing, it changes how urgent the deadline move feels. But if the offense slips back into those ugly stretches, the need for another proven scorer becomes impossible to ignore. Either way, the message from these last 2 games is important. The Warriors didn't just win, they showed a version of themselves that actually looks like the preseason vision. Now the challenge is simple. Keep building on it during this homestand, and make sure the next move at the trade deadline matches what the team is trying to become. Buddy Hield may want to stay in the Bay, but the Warriors might have to move on. The idea is simple. If Golden State is serious about chasing a title, the cleanest play may be trading Hield before the February 5 deadline, even if the player has made it clear he'd like to remain with the franchise. The report notes the Warriors resisted moving him in the offseason, and Hield has expressed a desire to stay in the San Francisco Bay Area. But the rotation is telling a different story. On Friday against the Kings, Hield played just 4 minutes, and those minutes came when the result was already decided. Even more revealing, he was out of the rotation in 4 of the previous 5 games. Golden State still wants shooting around Stephen Curry. That's why Hield was attractive in the first place. He's a career 39.5% three-point shooter in a league that values spacing more than ever. And he's had chances against top-level teams. The problem, according to the report, is everything else. Hield's defense and the lack of impact beyond shooting have become hard to ignore. The numbers in the report paint a blunt picture. His VORP is listed at 0.0, the Warriors are minus 8.2 in his minutes, and, most striking, Golden State is 15.3 points better per 100 possessions when he's not on the floor. That's the kind of gap a contender can't live with, not in a tight Western Conference where the margin for error is already thin. And it's why it becomes increasingly difficult for Steve Kerr to trust Hield when games tighten up and every possession matters. The report also frames this as something fans shouldn't be shocked by. Hield struggled in Philadelphia and ended up on the bench in the playoffs before landing in Golden State. That Buddy Love experience can come with highs and lows, but the Warriors can't afford to stay on that ride much longer if the goal is a deep postseason run. And this connects directly to the bigger deadline picture. The Warriors are expected to make moves before February 5th. They want to resolve the Jonathan Kuminga situation. Kuminga is out of the rotation right now, even though fans have seen flashes of what he can become. The team needs production at that spot, and the report suggests Golden State would love to land either a wing who can shoot and defend or a center to strengthen the roster. That's where Hield's contract becomes relevant. At $9, $6 million, it can function as a useful salary piece to help match money in a trade. The report also points out the $10 million player option for 2026-27 might scare some teams, but it's not so large that a rebuilding team would automatically walk away. In fact, the contract could help a rebuilding team reach the salary floor, while adding a proven shooter who provides spacing for young players. So the argument isn't that Hield has no value. It's that his value might be greater as a trade tool than as a playoff rotation piece. And if Golden State wants more talent and depth to compete with the top teams in the West, the pressure is on to find the right deal, potentially involving both Hield and Kuminga. Because the window is clear in the report. Stephen Curry is still playing at an elite level, which means the Warriors still have a real chance. But a long playoff run depends on what they do between now and February 5th. And the conclusion from the report is straightforward. Hield's shooting alone isn't enough to cover the defensive concerns, especially if he's going to be on the floor in playoff minutes. If the Warriors want a more reliable option for the stretch run, the smartest move may be acting fast, before the deadline forces their hand. And that's why this isn't just a Buddy Hield story. It's a deadline story, because once a player starts falling out of the rotation, the front office is basically sending a message, whether they say it out loud or not. If Hield is only seeing the floor in garbage time, it becomes harder to sell him as a key piece to another team. And it also makes it harder to justify keeping him when the Warriors are trying to tighten the rotation for high-stakes games. That's the ripple effect the report is pointing to. His desire to stay can be real, but the league is ruthless about fit, especially for a team with championship expectations. Golden State wants shooters around Curry, but the report makes it clear the trade-off isn't working. When a player's defense is a problem and the other stuff isn't showing up, the spacing benefit stops feeling worth it. And the on-off numbers in the report only intensify that pressure. A contender can't ignore being significantly better without a player on the floor. Not when every win matters in a crowded Western Conference. You can also feel how this connects to Kuminga. The Warriors want to end that situation. And the report suggests they're hunting for either a wing who can shoot and defend, or a center to upgrade the roster. That's important because it frames Hield as a tool, not a target. His $9.6 million contract becomes a lever. It's not about dumping him. It's about using the contract to make real deals possible. And the player option for 2026-27 creates another layer teams have to consider. The report notes some teams may hesitate, but it also argues it's not so heavy that a rebuilding team would automatically turn away, especially if it helps them reach the salary floor and adds a shooter who can space the floor for younger players. So the Warriors' challenge is finding the right partner and the right structure, a deal that improves the roster now, and a deal that actually fits what Steve Kerr can trust when games tighten up. Because that's the part fans will judge. Not whether a trade looks clean on paper, but whether it delivers someone the coaching staff will actually play when the postseason arrives. And that's why the deadline is so unforgiving. If Golden State waits too long, the options shrink. And if they make the wrong move, they risk being stuck with the same playoff problem the report is warning about. This is what the front office has to weigh. Curry is still elite, which keeps the window open, but the report makes the stakes clear. A deep run depends on meaningful upgrades before February 5th. And if Hield's minutes are already disappearing, the Warriors may not have the luxury of hoping it turns around. They may have to act quickly, and with the title as the only priority. The Warriors may have just landed a rare golden ticket to a trade, if the Ja Morant rumors are real. Here's the setup. Shams Charania of ESPN reported that the Memphis Grizzlies plan to explore potential trades involving Ja Morant. And if that's true, Golden State could quietly end up in a powerful position, not necessarily as the team that lands Morant, but as the third team that helps make the deal work. That's where things get interesting. In a star-level trade, the hardest part is usually fit. Memphis might not want certain pieces from the teams that actually want Morant. If that happens, the Warriors could step in as the solution team, taking on one piece, sending out another, and walking away better than they were before. And if Memphis has interest in Jonathan Kuminga, that opens an even cleaner path. A three-team structure could send Kuminga to the Grizzlies, while Golden State receives a different player back, one who better fits what they need right now. The big question is simple: who could that player be? One intriguing idea is Minnesota. If the Timberwolves were to enter the Morant conversation, it could create options the Warriors would actually like. Naz Reid is one name that immediately stands out in that kind of scenario. He's on a long-term contract, and the report suggests he could fit perfectly next to Golden State's core. More importantly, his scoring ability could take some of the nightly pressure off Stephen Curry. And if the Warriors truly believe in Reid's upside, he could be more than a short-term patch. He could be someone they build around moving forward. Even if Reid isn't available, there's another name that would make sense for Golden State: Donte DiVincenzo. Bringing him back would strengthen the perimeter and give the Warriors another solid piece in the rotation. So, in either case, the idea is the same. If the Warriors can move Kuminga to Memphis and receive a player like Reid or DiVincenzo in return, it becomes a conversation worth having. Sacramento is another team mentioned as a possible Morant suitor, and while the options there might be more limited for Golden State, the report suggests they could at least look at someone like Malik Monk or Keon Ellis. Miami is also mentioned as a potential destination. In that scenario, Tyler Herro could be involved, and the report suggests the Grizzlies would likely want him. If that didn't happen for some reason, the report floats Herro as a possible Warriors target, while also noting it would be very unlikely. The main point is this: if a Morant trade really does move from rumor to reality, Golden State could have a chance to jump into the middle of it and come out on the other side in a better position than they started. But it would have to be the right deal, not a just-get-involved deal. A deal that clearly upgrades the Warriors, both for the short term and for what they're trying to build next. And that's really the key takeaway here. This isn't about the Warriors chasing the biggest headline. It's about the Warriors recognizing what a league-shaking rumor could do to the market and positioning themselves to benefit from the chaos. Because when a player as big as Morant is even mentioned in trade conversations, everything starts moving. Teams that want him get aggressive. Teams that don't want him still react because prices and priorities shift overnight. And that's exactly where a third team can steal value. If Memphis is selective about what it wants back, it can create a mismatch between what the Morant team is offering and what the Grizzlies actually prefer. That mismatch is where Golden State can step in. They can offer a different kind of piece. They can take back a different kind of player. And they can help root contracts and talent in a way that makes the entire trade possible. That's why Kuminga's name matters so much in this conversation. If he's a player Memphis would actually want, Golden State suddenly has a clean entry point into negotiations that might otherwise have nothing to do with them. And from the Warriors' perspective, the logic is straightforward. They're not just trying to move Kuminga. They're trying to convert a complicated situation into a player who fits their roster better right now. That's why names like Naz Reid or Donte DiVincenzo get brought up as examples. Not because they're guaranteed to be available, but because they represent the kind of return Golden State would actually value. Players who could slide into a clearer role and strengthen the rotation. And the ripple effect goes beyond just one team. If Minnesota is involved, it changes what Sacramento might do. If Sacramento is involved, it changes what Miami might consider. And if Miami is involved, it changes what Memphis can demand. That's the domino effect of a blockbuster-level rumor. And for the Warriors, the opportunity is timing. They don't have to wait until the very end of the deadline window to see movement. If teams start lining up early, Golden State can get ahead of it and avoid being stuck in a crowded market where everyone is trying to do the same thing. But the caution is just as important. Being the third team only works if the return is clearly worth it, because the Warriors can't afford to take a deal that looks busy but doesn't make them better. They'd need a player who actually upgrades their weaknesses, or a piece that holds value beyond this season. Otherwise, they're just helping other teams solve their problems. So if the Morant situation turns into something real, The Warriors' best play may not be to chase the star. It may be to leverage the moment, step into the middle, redirect Kuminga, and come out with a player who makes their roster stronger in a way that's obvious the second he puts on the jersey.